Our viewers from the internet, and I hope all is well today. Today we're going to have Joe, who's going to be talking to us about charity. Today, this month is all about Jesus, and we're going to talk about charity through Jesus' voice and his love that Jesus we all carry. So today, I think this is going to do our initial prayer and the reading.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to read a passage from the book Happy Life, brought to you by the Creative Group by His Creative. While you have the source, cultivate solidarity. You are a social group and need the company of your neighbor in order to achieve the goals that you are reporting. Solidarity is one of the most useful instruments for success and in this attempt. Become useful, be kind, spread goodness, and in return, you will never find yourself.
So right now, let's close our eyes, calm our minds, thoughts, be here present in this moment to listen to the teachings that we will be given for us today. We ask, dear Lord, our Master Jesus, and all the mentors that are here present to invite joy and us in this teachings. Thank you for your patience. So
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome, everyone. Every language has some characteristics of being overly descriptive of aspects of the lives of the people who speak that language. Here in Canada, we use in the language in Quebec. They have 50 ways to say the word snow because they live along the weather. They live along the understanding how the snow changes around. And every language has some particular aspects that describe this. The Greeks, for example, had 7 different ways to say the word love. We often know a lot of words that come from the Greek. So we know eros, which is more of the erotic love, and philia, which is the familial love. But there's one that is going to be the focus of today's lecture. Remember, it's called charity. What we're going to be talking about today is what the Greeks would call agape. Agape is the love that gods, because they were not monotheists, they were monotheists, atheists, is that the love that gods have for us. It is the highest, most deep love one can have. It is unconditional. It is unlimited and often unsolicited. When translating that word, especially as we see in the Bible, we see different translations, often either as love or charity. So charity, the theme for today, is more about agape, not the kind of formal charity that we're talking about when we use the word in more common ways in English, but this most profound love that we have for each other, which is what Jesus preached to us in the New Testament. So I'm going to read a passage here that I'm sure everybody knows because it's so popular, especially in Bibles. It comes from Paul in his first letter to the Corinthians. Even if I were to speak all the languages of men and the language of angels themselves, if I did not have charity or agape in the original Greek versions of the Bible, I would be only like a sounding gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I were to have the gift of prophecy and grasp all mysteries and I had a perfect knowledge of all things, and if I had all the faith possible to the point of moving mountains, if I did not have charity, I would be nothing. And if I were to distribute my belongings to feed the poor and deliver my body to be burned, if I did not have charity, none of this would be any use to me. Charity is patient. Charity is benevolent and kind. Charity is not envious. It is not rash or hurried. It is not full of pride. It is not scornful. It does not look after its own interests. It does not take offense or become upset by anything. It does not suspect evil. It does not rejoice in injustice, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes for all things, endures all things. Now these three virtues remain: faith, hope, and charity. But among them, the most excellent is charity, or agape. So you see by Paul's description how big agape is, how deep it is. He's basically saying if God, which has all of these things that he describes here, right? It can move mountains, has the gift of prophecies, it is grasp all mysteries. This is true for God or any of the higher level spirits. If they had all of that, but did not have agape, did not have that charity towards all men, it would be useless. It would be meaningless. It would be a waste. Because ultimately, the reason we exist, the reason that we are progressing in our evolution is to have this love, this charitable love for one another. So, and when we think of the word charity, we also use another definition. We define charity within this context of agape to be love in action. So I can love somebody, I can have love for something, but if I keep it to myself, nobody will know about it. I will not be able to exercise that love. I will not be able to bring that love to the people I love if I just keep it inside. It doesn't do anything. It's good for me because I'm feeling good, I have all of these positive feelings, but it's really not doing what it's supposed to be doing. And this is what Paul is telling us here. Because agape is the charity, it is the love in action. How do we make love an action? So, and I'm going to be reading a lot from, obviously, our favorite book, The Gospel According to Spiritism, because two chapters that are impactful today. Chapter 15, which talks about without charity there's no salvation, and chapter 13, which is do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. These are the two main chapters that talk about charity, and they're just fantastic. I do encourage people to have this book, to read it, to make sure that you look at the beautiful messages and words that are contained in them. So I'll be reading quite a bit from it today, because I wouldn't be able to say it any better. So we're backing up to chapter 13. Well, the first part was in chapter 15, the passage from Paul. Now we're going to be reading from chapter 13, which is the one about the left hand and the right hand. And this is around some of the spirits teachings that we get. Every chapter in this book has a passage from the Bible. There are questions and answers about that particular passage and how it's interpreted by Spiritism. And then towards the end, often we have this Spirit's teachings. So Kardec, at his time, when he was codifying or putting together these Spiritist books, he would gather a lot of information, a lot of notes from meetings with mediums. They would receive these messages, and often they would get kind of communications from spirits directly on a particular subject. And he organized these into these chapters. So this is a very interesting one that also speaks very well to what we're going to be discussing today. So it's item 13 of chapter 13. I am called Charity, and I am the main road leading to God. Follow me, for I am the goal towards which you all must strive. This morning I went on my usual rounds, and with an afflicted heart I have come to tell you, oh my friends, such misery, so many tears, and so much you must do to dry them all. In vain I try to console poor mothers, telling them, courage, there are good hearts watching over you. You will not be forsaken. Patience, God is there. You are his beloved. You are his elect. Just moving on later, it's a long reading. That is why I have come here, my friends, and say to you, everywhere abound unfortunates, whose cupboards are without bread, whose hearths are without fire, and whose beds are without blankets. I do not tell you what you should do. I leave the initiative to your good hearts. If I were to tell you how to proceed, you would derive no merit from your good deed. I will tell you only, I am Charity, and I hold out my hand to you on behalf of your suffering brothers and sisters. But if I ask, I also give, and I give much. I invite you to a great banquet, and I furnish you with the tree from which you will all be filled. Behold how beautiful it is, how it is loaded with blossoms and fruit. Go on, pick and take all the fruit off that lovely tree called beneficence. In place of the branches you have left bare, I will attach all the good deeds you have done, and will take this tree to God, so that he may load it up again. For beneficence is inexhaustible. So follow me, my friends, so that I may count you among those who rally around my banner. Fear not, I will lead you along the way of salvation, for I am Charity. This is a spirit actually identified as Charity, who was a martyr in ancient Rome. So it's a beautiful reading, and it tells so much. It tells about the need. It tells how many of our brothers and sisters need assistance. And this could be, as she described, many are material assistance, food, heat, shelter, but others also more of moral and emotional assistance. People are lonely. People are desolate, depressed. They are going through their own sufferings. And often all they need is somebody there to listen and give them some assuring words. But this love, this agape, needs to come from your heart. If I were to say, Sandra, you would now donate, you're going to go and do this such and such. You're going to be doing the meetings that we have here for counseling. Now, if I'm telling her to do it, it's not coming from her heart, is it? She might feel obliged to do it because I'm telling her to do it. This is what charity here, this spirit called charity, is telling us as well. Nobody can tell you how to practice your love. You have to do this yourself. You have to find the ways how to express it, how to put it in action, how to find the right measure. For some people, it might be most of their lives are dedicated to others. Like Mother Teresa, our mission was very different than what most of us do. Of course, we practice a lot of the agape with our family, with our friends, and we don't think twice about it. We just do it, right? It comes natural, it comes from the heart. But the real challenge is taking that same feeling, that same desire to help to others beyond this close circle. How do we do that? Charity is also saying that God is willing to replenish all that we give. That is inexhaustible. It doesn't end. In chapter 15, we also begin actually with a parable that I have done many lectures on. It's one that I like very much. It's the parable of the Good Samaritan.
Mhm.
Right? And through this parable, Jesus is preaching, is teaching what it means to be a good person. Not a good Christian, not a good Jew, a good person. And we all know the story, and I won't spend much time in here, but the story is that a man is attacked and he's left for dead at the side of the road. And people go by and don't help him. Until finally a Samaritan, which didn't have the meaning that we have it today, right? It just meant the people from Samaria. There was a Jewish sect just north of Jerusalem. And he uses this particular person because we have to remember that when Jesus tells these parables, it doesn't mean that it was actually happened that way. There was a real case. He's putting this into the context of a story. So he picks a Samaritan and he kind of implies that the person that was hurt was another Jewish person, but not a Samaritan. And the Samaritans and the other Jewish sects didn't get along too well. The Samaritans were seen a little bit as a extreme. They were kind of set aside. They liked that. They were isolated. So nobody would expect that a Samaritan would help a stranger. Especially because in the Jewish faith, you're not allowed to touch someone that was dead. So how could he know if that person that was on the street, on the road, was dead or not? But he does. He helps and takes that injured person on his animal, his donkey or horse, takes it to a kind of a place where he is given food, shelter, and is helped to kind of recover from his injuries. And this is such a powerful story that the word Samaritan became a synonym of goodness, of charity, of this agape, of helping unconditionally without expecting anything in return to a stranger. And I would like to believe that most people in normal circumstances would act as a Samaritan if this was the case. Now I know that life is dangerous, so if you're alone at night and you see somebody asking for help, unfortunately now we have to think twice. So you might think, well, maybe this is a trap, right? They're just wanting me to stop and then they're going to rob me, rob my car, rob me, or make harm to me. Well, in fact, this would have been true at the time of Jesus as well. This type of trickery is not something new. It would have happened back then. Thieves, they were common along the roads. They could fake somebody being sick, and if you stop to help, there, you're now you fell into the trap. But in most circumstances, we tend to try to help and find out, but it's becoming, unfortunately, a little bit less common. I was just watching, I guess I was reading in one of these news sites. There's a documentary that was done by BBC that was going to air this week. And it was about a journalist who wanted us to document sexual harassment of women coming out of bars or nightclubs at night, how dangerous it was. Right? So she would go to a nightclub, fake that she was drunk, and then see what would happen as she walked through the street all by herself. And she said, obviously, there were a lot of men who come and try to get her to go to their apartment or get her to take more drugs, more alcohol, obviously, to get her in a position to be sexually used. Right? And that's unfortunately not surprising, then how we know that there's a lot of predators that do this. But what was surprising is that some of these nightclubs were in actually very busy areas of London, right? And she would say that she was walking across the street, kind of stumbling or whatever, and she would go by police officers or other people who were there just having fun, and nobody would look at her. Nobody cared about her. Nobody wanted to know if she was okay. In a good way, because the guys who showed up to say when you were okay, they obviously had different intentions. Is this a reflection of the times that we're at? They're becoming more immune to others? I would hope not, but this is why we have to always come back and read chapters like 13 and 15 to remind us that we have to look out for each other. Certainly keeping ourselves safe at the same time, but let's not walk by somebody and just ignore them or just think that somebody else will do the deed. Somebody else would care. Why would you have to expect that somebody else, if you're not doing it, why would somebody else do it? So in all of this, what comes across from this Good Samaritan is the notion that this is something that will be counted as we move forward in our evolution. Every opportunity missed is going to be an opportunity that will be reminded over and over again. Here, in after describing the parable and everything that happens, right? The Radak adds a few comments. It says all of Jesus' morals are summed up in charity and humility. So we're talking about agape, and I said agape is it's something that's given automatically. The humility means that we're not making ourselves inferior to others, we're making ourselves equal to others. And he continues, that is, in the two virtues contrary to selfishness and pride. In all his teachings, he points to these virtues as being the way to eternal happiness. And this is why in Spiritism, we always say, without charity, there is no salvation. And what we mean by salvation is a bit different than you might see in other religions. It's not a salvation that we're saved and everything is fine. Salvation for us, what we've been saved from, is from our ignorance, our primitive natures. Our salvation is our evolution. That's what's going to save us as we progress from one life to another, learning how to correct past mistakes, and more importantly, not doing this just for ourselves. Because the charity that we're talking about here is about everybody else. I often use this analogy or this picture, and I know people who have seen my lectures might remember this, that our path to evolution is a little bit like Jacob's ladder. Jacob's ladder is a description as we go up to heaven. Right? I see ourselves, our ladder is our evolution. Every step we go up, we're evolving on it, one step at a time. But if you take one of these big ladders that we have at home that go up to 20, 30 feet or whatever, it's only one person going up at a time. So that's a very kind of selfish view of our evolution. The way I imagine is that all of us have our own ladders and we're all together. So we have all of these ladders going up.
And each one has a person going at their own pace. Some people will go faster, some people struggle. And they slip, and they go up again, and everybody's trying to go to the top. The top is the pureness of our spirit. But that's still very individualist, right? Everyone has their own ladder, they're all doing their own speed, and in many ways that is true. But now imagine that I'm tethered, I have a rope tied to the person next to me. And I can only go up so far until that rope pulls me back. If that other person is way lower than me. So if I want to keep going up, what do I have to do?
Help.
Help the other person, right? Help them, because as they go up, I go up. Now imagine that I have one of those ropes connected to everyone, not just the person next to me. Everyone, I have that rope connected. What does that mean? That we're evolving as a society, as a planet, right? And this is a lot of things that we talked about the planetary evolution. That there comes a point that we can only go so far if we don't bring everyone up. And this is why we also know that in reincarnation, sometimes the people who are at the bottom pushing everyone down, they might be asked to go to a different place to continue their evolution. Because otherwise, every one of those who are really, really struggling and are not able to keep up, they will just hold everybody else back. So they have a different chance, a new set of ladders that they're going to be working from. So this is what agape is understanding that our charity, our love towards everyone is helping us evolve collectively. There's another parable in the Bible that I'm sure everybody knows. It was about the widow, right? So here in chapter 13 and 5, we bring that parable in. Jesus was seated opposite to the offertory box, watching the way in which people dropped their money into it, and noticing that many of the wealthy were putting large amounts. Yeah, this is typical, right? I'm going to donate money. It's so much easier to donate money than anything else. It's still useful, still can do a lot of good, but that's how we're kind of seems like we're paying our way to heaven. A poor widow also came and put in only 2 small coins in the amount of a farthing. Farthing is like a quarter, so a quarter of whatever was the currency at the time. Then having called his disciples, he said to them, "Verily I say to you that this poor widow has given more than what all the others have put into the offertory box. More than all the others. For they have all given in their abundance, whereas she has given of her poverty. Everything she had, and everything that was left for her to live on." So here's a poor woman, a widow that doesn't have any good way to make money, dropping in the few coins that she had. And we find this a lot among the community of homeless people. They often give to others what they don't have, or they barely have, right? So we can't say that we can't be charitable, right? Because we don't have anything. Can't be charitable because I don't have enough money, or I don't have the time, I don't have the skill to help. We all have something to give, right? It could be often, as we have here, people helping during Christmas or Thanksgiving dinners for the poor, for the homeless, or working with a church, working with the school, right? All of these are all noble ways of practicing your love. But most importantly is to be real agape, real charity, it has to be given unconditionally. That is one of the words that defines agape, unconditional love. And this is tough, because unconditional love means that, A, we expect nothing in return, not even a thank you, not even the recognition for what we're doing, not even a little clapping and praise. Good job, Joe, you're doing things great. If we're doing for that, then that is called pride. And pride is the opposite of what?
Charity.
Of charity and humbleness. Now, this is why they say the two main things is charity and humbleness. And this is the whole kind of theme that we have around chapter 13. Do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. Now, it's not about you being divided into your right and left hand, obviously. Is that who are the left hand? The left hand is everybody else. It's your community, your family, your co-workers, right? Where you want to be recognized for your charity, for your charitable ways. Why is that important? Is it helping the other people more? No, it's helping yourself, in your ego, in your pride. To think, I'm good. So in some ways, our pride puts us in a pedestal. It makes us think that we're better than the person that we're helping. That we're better than the other persons who are not helping as much. Just as the widow. If I'm rich and I'm giving a lot of money and this widow is just giving 25 cents or a quarter, then I'm thinking, well, if I give 100 times more than she does, then I'm 100 times better than she is. But this is a trap. If we're going to practice real charity, and this is so important, obviously, at this time of the year, when we're coming to Christmas, and this doesn't mean that we only should be charitable during Christmas, but it does bring Jesus to our heart, to our mind, stronger than probably the rest of the year. Everything around us, if we strip the commercial characteristics of Christmas, there's still a lot that is about being charitable, being kind of thinking about others. So it's the right time for us to remind ourselves why we want to be charitable. It should be something instinctive that comes deep from inside you. Even if the people you're giving to are ungrateful, even if they complain to you that you haven't done enough to try to make you guilty, to make you try to force you to give them more. Again, it's another trap, the guilt trap. Even if you succumb to that guilt and give more money to somebody who's been kind of complaining that especially family is great for this, right? If you're better off than some of your relatives, and they always will claim that you're not giving enough, that you're selfish. And then you sometimes oblige just to make them go away. Well, that is not charity. That is blackmail. Right? And you just accept it. It's extortion. You may go away for a while, but this has not done anything to help your progress. You haven't learned anything from it. You really have, as I said many times already, agape does not come from others to you. It comes from you to others. We can teach our children to think and be aware of how important these things are. And with good luck, they will take that lesson into adulthood and they will act properly on that. But still, if you keep telling them to do something, that there's no merit for them to do it. And that's a tough lesson because we think, well, they're not doing it, then it's going to be bad for them, so I'll force them to do it. And then eventually they'll get a habit of doing this and make this kind of a normal thing. Again, unconditional, unlimited love for others.
And Joel,
Yes.
they also need to see, especially children, they learn by example, and especially the charity, they need to learn from the parents, from their siblings, from
Examples,
everybody.
through examples, and through the goodness of their heart, goodness of their willingness to understand why they're doing this. It's not like, you pay your taxes every month and you have to do it, right? It's not that kind of obligation. It's an obligation to feeling good for doing what is right, for helping others that may not be as fortunate as you are. And it can be, simple things like a smile, a thank you, an extra tip for someone that's working that I see often now. For example, we know that there were a number of immigrants coming from Syria, and a lot of them are well educated, but taking on some menial jobs, and I see it like Uber delivery, right? They're trying their best under very difficult conditions. So a small tip, a thank you, a good 5 stars from them. All of these are positive things that you're doing to encourage them, to help them get their feet back on the ground. Not their fault that this is happening. And this is a trial that they have as part of their evolution. We understand that. But it doesn't mean that we have to suffer, even ourselves, alone. All these relations that are passed on to us, either because we have to redeem or correct errors of our past existence, or because there are tasks for us to move to the next level. There are ours to carry, but it doesn't mean that we have to be alone as we do that. At the end of the chapter 15, we come back to Paul in a message that he left in one of these meetings, leadership meetings in 1860 in Paris. This is kind of a summary of it all. This is why Kardec felt this was so important that he made this the Spiritist main motto. And it's called, "Without charity, there is no salvation." So, item number 10, chapter 15. My children, in the maximum, "Without charity, there is no salvation," are contained the destinies of men and women on earth and in heaven. On earth, because in the shadow of this banner, they will live in peace. In heaven, because those who have practiced it will find grace before the Lord. That's the salvation. This model is the heavenly light, the luminous pillar that guides them through the desert of life in order to lead them to the promised land. It shines in heaven like saintly halo around the brows of the elect. And on earth, it is engraved on the hearts of those whom Jesus will say, "Go to the right, you who are blessed, my Father." See how I couldn't say anything better than what's written here? It's incredible. You will recognize them by the fragrance of charity that they spread around them. So in heaven, our charity, or agape, has this fragrance of goodness. Nothing better expresses Jesus' thought, nothing better sums up the duties of men and women than this maxim of divine good. Spiritism could not prove its origin in any better way than by providing it as a rule. So as spirits, This is our rule. Because it is a reflection of the purest Christianity. When you take many of the other religions, Islam, that's one of the pillars of Islam is charity as well. With such a guide, people will never become lost. So, my friends, apply yourselves to grasping its profound meaning and consequences, and to discovering for yourselves all of its applications. Submit all of your actions to the test of charity, agape. And your conscience will respond to you. It's inside us, we know. Not only will it help you to avoid practicing evil, but it will lead you to practice the good. For not to have a negative virtue is not enough. It is necessary to have an active one. I'm saying. To have love inside and not practice evil is a great start. But it's not where we end. We end with charity. In order to practice the good, the action of the will is always necessary. You have to have the will. Whereas in order not to practice evil, idleness and negligence are often enough. So what he's saying is that if we don't practice evil, that's a good thing. But we have to practice what is good. So here's the last chapter. My friends, give thanks to God, who has allowed you to enjoy the light of Spiritism. Not because those who possess this enlightenment are the only ones who will be saved. Of course not. But because in helping you to understand Christ's teachings more fully, it makes us better Christians. So make every effort so that when others observe you, they can say that the true Spiritists and the true Christians are one and the same thing. For all who practice charity are Jesus' disciples, whatever the denomination to which they belong. So on that note, I wish all of us to take these words, this mission, with us, not only at this time of the year with Christmas, but at every step of our lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean. Thanks, everybody. We're going to open now for questions. Any questions or comments on the internet? No? Any questions or comments here? I think you have a question? No. You have a comment? No?
Don't put him under pressure.
I'm just saying, say something.
So remember, even as a teenager, right? Obviously, we don't have the resources, we don't have the money, we don't have the same things we will have as an adult. But charity, often, as I said, is in the small things, right? So if you're in school and you see somebody being bullied, charity is to help them or to alert adults that something wrong is happening. Not only to avoid you doing the wrong thing, but also helping others who are being harmed. People who are making maybe some bad decisions, right? So all of these things are I would say, the start of a good Christian life when it comes to agape.
Thank you, Joe.
You
Thank you, everybody. I'm sorry?
You do the final prayer?
Sure. Okay, so thanks everybody that were watching us and following us through the internet. And so now we're going to ask you to close your eyes. And with this beautiful energy and harmony and peace that we are experiencing now that surround us through Jesus' love, we thank God for His presence in us, for His presence in the world. And we thank Jesus for bringing God's laws into our minds and our souls, that may all this love that we may put them in action through charity, that we may put everybody that is surrounding us with the love that we have in our hearts in action. And we ask them to be with us throughout the week, giving us the strength and the clarity of mind into our actions, so we can put them towards God's will and Jesus. And so be it.
So be it.
Thank you so much. And for those who want to stay for the class, just ask you to stay for the seat. And one more thing before we go. Sorry, again, stay at the end. Next Sunday is going to be our last Sunday of the year for lectures. We are going to be, we invite everybody who wants to come for our annual planning day, which is going to be January the 15th. So please do come, bring your suggestions and bring your ideas for the year that is going to start to 2023. And then the return of the elections will be the Sunday after, which I don't know what is that, the 22nd of January. Okay? I don't see most of you, which I don't think we will, because we're going south. There's snowbirds. And I'll see you again first week of May. Okay? So thank you, and Belize, and I'm sorry? Say that again.
No, nothing.
No?
No.
Okay. Okay, so thank you so much, and stay in your seat.